Dina, she has the most amazing deck that you're going to love that has fantastic visual images of all the great things that are in new homes today that people value. She is with the New Home Trends Institute, which is part of John Burns Consulting now. And I think you're going to just absolutely love her section.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Deanna Vidal, and Eric, it was really lovely to see how you laid all that out. We're going to dig into 2 case studies in the finishes and personalization. So if you want to dig into that a little deeper, find us at the finishes and personalization track. So what we do is we take and we survey consumers around the country. Almost every month we're producing a different topic, a report on a different topic. We're also talking to architects and developers and builders around the country, and we're hearing what they're doing, what they're trying, what's working, what's not working. But then we also are tracking the designs that are selling really well or that are running really well around the country. And so I have data from consumers and architects, and I also have what's going on around the country where maybe people have already solved those problems. And I kind of mushed it together, but we're gonna rock and roll through these. I could give you probably 30 of these, but I thought these 8 were the most important to talk about today.
Well, and you do have an extended session later in the conference.
I have so much data, we don't have time to talk about it, so we're going to stick to these. But yes,
no, but later in the
kitchens,
conference.
we're talking about kitchens, we're talking about tech, we have all kinds of things. These are the high-level ones that I want you to leave today to really sort of set the stage on what's happening. So we're going to start with number 1, which is fit more function into the same size space. This happened a lot before COVID. COVID just accelerated it. And when I talk about trends, I don't talk about a blip on a market. I talk about things that are already happening and they're picking up and they're ramping up. That's how we look at trends. Trends don't show up one day and disappear another. That's called a fad. So these are all trends. They want to fit more function into the same size space. So that means that we need to continue to design our floor plans in order to do this, because consumers are now demanding it. They don't just think that it's nice to be able to work from home. Some of them have to work from home. It's not just nice to be able to work out from home. Sometimes that's the only way they can fit it into their schedule, and our architects are picking up on this. New functions are arriving in the homes through these designs. We've been talking to builders and trying to figure out how they're doing it, and don't think about it in bedroom counts. So you're still going to have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house or a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, but you're also going to need to have a flex space. You're also going to need to have a place for them to work from home. You're also going to need to have a hobby room. You don't necessarily need to have all of these things, but that extra space is definitely needed, and how you merchandise that in your homes matters. Sometimes it's a lock-off unit because they do need that rental income, and that now helps them qualify in a lot of places where you can say, I'm going to make this amount of income off of my lock-off rental unit. I can apply that to my mortgage. And then it helps them qualify in order to be able to afford that home. So start to think of little things like that. We ask, what are the number 1 things that you've been designing in new rooms or features that you weren't designing previously to our architects? Number 1 was home office. And this is all the different ones. You've heard about the Zoom rooms and the pocket offices and the tech alcoves and all the different versions of it. Number 1 is home office. Number 2 is fitness space. Number 3 is flex space. Number 4 is your back kitchen or a butler's pantry, anything that takes that clutter out of the kitchen. And then number 5 is an accessory dwelling unit or anything that's a rental space. So think about that when you're merchandising. You might have 1 flex space in a floor plan, but you might merchandise it in 2 or 3 different ways when you're doing that. Here's one consumer approved trade-off when it comes to trimming some square footage off. And it's, I don't necessarily need a separate dining room or dining table in order to eat. However, it needs to be really well designed. So here's an example of a sort of wrap-around table that happens in a kitchen. So if you're trying to find some extra space, maybe that dining room that you used to have, I know Texas still has a lot of dining rooms in it, but maybe that dining room is their flex space, and they eat in the kitchen for the most part. Another consumer approved trade-off is trimming down square footages. Here we go. Sorry, it blinked up here. Is you don't necessarily need that whole home office. Think about what works for the consumer. You see this little alcove that happens off the bed here? That could be a place for a Peloton, a fitness mirror, or you could work from home there. Our number 2 consumer desire is cutting costs without cutting value. So I was trying to dig up the numbers and I didn't quite get it all together, but I think the last data that I saw was it was around 35% purchasing power is what the consumer has lost in the past 10 months. Think about that. 30 to 35% purchasing power just because of what happens with interest rates. So a year ago, if I was shopping for a home, my budget might have been $550,000. It's now $375,000. Somebody can probably do better math. That was my quick math in my head.
Close enough, though.
But does you got to do more with less, because if you have a smaller budget, you're either buying a smaller home or you're buying in an area that wasn't necessarily the area that you wanted to shop within. So how do we do this? Architects are telling us that they're cutting cost and value is their number one driver for the next 3 years. Connection to nature and outdoors is the number two. So consumers want to be connected to nature and they want to afford their home. Those are the number one and number two things. So how do we do this? Yes, through density. And density is going to arrive in markets that it was not necessarily happening. So density means different things in different markets. My point here is that if you're planning a community and you have the ability to go back and your things aren't through entitlement yet, take a second look, because consumers are willing to accept density if it means that it can get them into the market and get them into the community that they want to be in.
Well, and I think communities are probably more receptive to that than they have been in the past.
Absolutely.
We've had a lot of trouble
Yeah.
permitting, right, and getting approval for these dents, but I think communities are aware of the housing challenge today, and in this environment, maybe the environment you could convince them to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll point out here the image on the right. This is 3 townhomes that looks like one really large home, and sometimes that's what you have to do to get it approved through City Council. So just to note right there. Some consumer-approved trade-offs on streamlining exteriors. We asked consumers how flexible they were on the exterior design of their home, and 64% of consumers, so 2 out of 3, said, I'm kind of flexible. So think about how that affects what you could do and how you could maybe take some of the costs out of your exteriors. And I'm going to give you an example real quick. So just bear with me while I walk you through this, and I don't have a laser pointer, I don't think. So you see these 3 windows over the garage, and then you see the 2s and the 2s in the front of the home. They're all the exact same size window. They just pair them differently so that it lets a different amount of light in and it creates a different visual street scene, but they're all the exact same size window. The other thing that this elevation does really well is it does color blocking. So you're not necessarily having to spend a ton of money, but there's visual interest to the street. You can also see that that doesn't necessarily happen on the side of the homes. They really spent the money where it counts on the front here. And we asked architects 3 materials is sort of the average on what they're doing on the front of homes right now, but that includes color blocking. So think about that. And then they spend the money on the masonry on that very front piece that juts out. And this also just has a really great proportion to it, which helps as well. But the house next to this isn't going to look exactly to that, because we want to keep the design diversity within our street scenes. And when we ask consumers, they really enjoy having what the street scene looks like. So yeah, I really wanted that modern farmhouse. Yes, I said it. It's still there. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So just get used to it.
There's a house in Waco for you.
There's also one in every other major metropolis area in the country. So I really wanted that modern farmhouse, but you know what? I want this floor plan. And the street looks so great. I think I can give up my modern farmhouse exterior because I love this floor plan, and that street scene just looks fantastic when I drive home. Another consumer-approved trade-off, it's not just on the exterior of the homes, it's also in the interiors, and we'll dive into this a little bit later in some other sessions, but they're open to using different materials, even synthetic materials, especially if they're easy to clean, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And we're seeing this both on the exteriors and the interiors of homes, and we've validated it in multiple ways. One, when we do our own consumer surveys, but we also have a partnership with the NKBA, and we're seeing it in our surveys with them as well. Our third consumer desire is to have right-sized spaces, and this also goes back to the past one. So you got to get the size right. If I have a giant basketball court and that's where I'm doing my Zoom calls from, or that's a giant basketball court and I'm trying to take a call while my toddler's playing on the other side, that's not necessarily the best size space for me to do that. So a pocket office is what most consumers are perfectly happy with. You can see here, no matter the type of, let me just go back real quick, no matter the stage of life, everybody's saying, I'm okay with a pocket office. Don't give me a full bedroom. I don't need a full bedroom. And then a right size office, this is a great example. Sometimes if you do it right, 1, they need natural light, but 2, you can also fit 2 of these spaces in one home. And then if you have two people working from home, or maybe one's your pocket office and maybe one's your Peloton room or your fitness mirror room, this is the exact same size space as the previous slide, just merchandised a little differently and designed a little bit differently. And then
I
sides.
love the way they use that glass to partition that walkway.
Isn't that fun?
I mean, how many times do we see an upstairs area where there's this kind of awkward
Yeah.
space that we don't know what to do with? But
Yeah.
that glass partitioning makes it a space.
Yeah.
Really,
I love it.
That was really neat.
I love it. And it's a great solution for a fitness area, but maybe not so much if you're trying to do something more private. But that's where it comes down to, like, play with your floor plans a little bit and see what you can make happen, especially when you're merchandising them. Oh, we're going the wrong way. And then the last one is outdoor spaces. So it's not necessarily about how big my yard is, it's about how functional it is. Can I entertain there? Can I see myself there? Can I sit and have a glass of wine at the end of the day? Can I invite my friends over? Is it shaded? All of these things. Sometimes it needs to be fully covered, sometimes it needs to be partially covered, but it really comes down to getting the size right and also getting the function right, which brings me to functional outdoor living space. How often do homeowners spend time outdoors? You can see here that no matter the life stage, if they're retired, if they have a young family, anything else, it's more than half, like 60 to 70% are out there a few times a week or more. That's a lot of time outside. And I don't have the data back in 2017, 18, 19 to survey this directly, but I guarantee you it was not that high a few years ago. And then how, when we ask our architects how they're allocating the footprint of the home, 58% of them are telling us that they're allocating more space to outdoors. And this is that connection to nature that we were talking about earlier. And where should it connect? It should connect to the kitchen. If you had to pick one spot, I might recommend two spots that you have outdoor space, but for the sake of conversation, that kitchen and family room, that great room area is really where you have to get the design right. And here's one example that I thought was really clever on how it's designed. And I don't have all the photography, but if you look at the image on the right, you can see the door. It will take you directly to the kitchen and the dining area. And then I think that they designed this and merchandised this home for somebody who really loves sports, because if you're sitting at that bar and those windows are open, you look directly through into the TV.
Oh, so you don't have to have an outside TV.
Yeah.
Kind of inside-outside entertainment.
And you can tie those spaces together, but you can just pass things back and forth it up. This is a buffet. I thought this was a really good design solution, so I wanted to share that with you. And then here's an example from Toll Brothers in California, where they had a townhome product in Palm Springs, and Toll's notorious for having like expansive, like just over the top places that you don't want to leave. They said, in this one, we're going to have little nodes throughout that's going to help to connect to outdoors in multiple places so that different people can be doing different functions at the same time. Number 5 is privacy. I could probably talk all day about privacy. I will spare you that because we don't have that kind of time. But here you can see that no matter where people are or how dense or rural or urban their areas are, they're worried about people being able to see into their homes or their yards. And well, let's just talk about the bathroom for a second, because that's the most private area in the home. If we had to like list one private area, we ask consumers what's your ideal balance between natural light and privacy, because we don't want to be locked in a closet all day, right? And they said smaller windows placed above and out of sight. And I know many people who have those beautiful, expansive photo picture windows over the bathtub, and they look great. Most of the time they point directly at somebody else's home directly across the street. So thinking about how that might look, this is what it looks like. And, you know, somebody came to me and said, these are so hard to install. There's solutions out there. There's window manufacturers that figured this out, and they make it really easy to install. This is all one piece. You just pop it in there. Bada bing, bada bang. You have these beautifully aligned windows and great natural light over this beautiful soaking tub. Another way to do windows right in the kitchen, here's an example of how to get natural light in without having to worry about washing your dishes and your neighbor across the street also washing their dishes at the same time, and you guys have to sit there and awkwardly wave at each other or pull the blinds down, which is even more awkward. So putting low landscape windows or high landscape windows allows for you to do that, get natural light in without sacrificing the cabinetry. I can also give you a couple examples. Here's one in bedrooms. So that high window with a door allows for the bed to be placed on multiple walls without necessarily giving you any sort of restrictions there, but it also connects to the outdoor. It brings the light in from multiple angles in multiple ways, which lights that room up. And then the example on the bottom here, there's an outdoor retreat, but because of where those giant slider doors are, there's a fireplace out there. It blocks the view from the neighbor. You have to turn to get the view. So your neighbors aren't staring directly at your bed. So little thoughtful things like this. I actually spend a lot of time going through and looking at floor plans once they're on the site and saying, where do your windows align? So I'm happy to do that for anybody who wants to give me a call. It's actually a lot of fun for me.
You know, in the future, there's some really cool stuff with LG, with the new flexible thin film that they have, where they're starting to look at replacing certain windows in homes, where you have these really narrow lot lines, right, where the window's just going to look, 6 feet away at a wall of a house, where they're actually replacing the windows with active monitor windows. And you can still then control the frequency of the light for all the mood enhancement issues. So you're still getting light in, and you can have all kinds of scenes. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that technology eventually plays out in dense design.
I think it would be. I live in Northern California. I don't think it gets more dense than that for new housing. And I walk a lot of product, and I spend a lot of time going, oh, hi, neighbor, whenever you're doing the walkthroughs. It's not just neighbor to neighbor privacy either. It's also privacy within the home. And so here's an example of a really well-designed floor plan for the owner's retreat, because that's one of the other areas that, when you're in there, you just want to be like, if you have kids, you're like, please just don't come in here. If you live by yourself, you just want to maybe escape from your partner because they're doing a Zoom call or they're doing one of those really loud Peloton workouts in another room. But it allows layers of privacy. And so you can see here in what's outlined as a 1, you have to turn and walk through a door, so there's not a direct line of sight from that great room living area. And then they also have an owner's retreat that acts as a buffer between the primary bathroom and the primary bedroom. And that's the reason I love this, is because it creates 3 different ways I look at privacy: sight, sound, and smell, right? And so it creates a buffer on all 3 of those levels, so that if somebody needs to, sing show tunes in the shower while they're getting ready in the morning, but their partner wants to be sleeping in a little later, you can still achieve that in this floor plan design without necessarily going crazy. I mean, this is a pretty smart, simple solution. Number 6 on what consumers are looking for is smart storage solutions. I'm happy to talk about this in every room, but kitchen and garage are the number 1 and number 2 places that consumers want to get this right. And how we do that is through multiple different designs. But before we get there, 51% of homeowners have more than 1 refrigerator or freezer. Am I the only one that was surprised by that? I was really surprised by that. But where are these? They're either in the kitchen or they're in the garage, right? Which is also where we put everything else that we need to access on a regular basis. Another place to look at where you need to get storage right is at the owner's entry. So I'm not necessarily talking about the entrance of the home, but wherever that owner comes through. Is it through the garage? Is it through a side door? Is it through the main entrance? Townhomes, a lot of times that might be the case. But they drop their shoes, they drop their keys, they drop their coat, they drop their rain gear there. And if they have a pet, they drop their pet's stuff there. Here's a really smart solution. It's simple. This is such a simple, but it's so smart. And why is that? They left a little bit of space to the left of the bench for rain boots, umbrellas, whatever might be there. This isn't a 1 cubby hole, this is a 2 cubby hole for shoes, because most shoes aren't that tall. There's some hooks, there's a place to set water bottles, there's a place to sit and put my shoes on. It does not take up a lot of space. It is very well designed, and it's probably cost a couple $100 to merchandise this way. But it helps set the stage as you're entering the home. And then in the kitchen, most consumers tell us that they're okay with not having that huge, large walk-in pantry. So if you're trying to find a couple square feet here and there, this might be one of the places to look, as long as you can close it off and you can get that clutter out of the way. I'm going to walk through these, but I guess my point here is look between the studs, look for solutions in your cabinets, that might help people that need to access things. And don't forget about the fact that you can store in other rooms, such as your dining room, your office, or within your hallways. So look for all those opportunities.
You talk about the hidden space. It's almost
Yeah.
like you want to take your architectural drawings and look at where's all the space that we sell, but can't use because it's behind a wall. I saw a builder the other day did a fascinating thing. They have a dog cubby.
Yeah, I love those.
Under the stairs.
Yeah.
So they took that sometimes you can put like a powder room under the
Yep.
stairs, but there's still that little triangle that's only, 2 feet tall, and they put a dog cubby in there, and it's an option they sell that has like 90% take
Oh,
rate.
yeah.
This is wasted space in the home, and now you have a feature
Absolutely.
that you're using, a value added feature, of this wasted space.
People love to spend money on their pets. I'm just going to say, there's a lot of wasted space that pets could occupy, but maybe that's a session for next year. Number 7 is consumers want it to be easy to clean. This one's very obvious. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in one of the sessions later, but when you're selecting materials, or you're selecting finishes, my suggestion is, how hard is this to clean? Stop and ask yourself that. Why? Because when we ask homeowners, let's just take bathtubs and showers. What's your number one priority? That it's easy to clean. When we ask them about their sinks, what is so frustrating? It's hard to clean. It's hard to clean. Or the water splashes out, which means I have to clean it, right? So let's lower the amount of time that consumers are spending cleaning. And number 8, I know we're all home builders here, and we are traditionally for sale, but stop and think, there's a percentage of people out there who just want to live the lifestyle of a homeowner, and they don't necessarily want the mortgage, and they don't necessarily want the maintenance. Anybody have any guesses, like what percentage of people are like, I just want a home that fits my needs. I do not care if it's for rent or if I buy it.
I bet it's increasing.
25%.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, woo, okay, I'm just gonna let that sink in. 25%, that is 1 in 4 people said, and these are people that make over $100,000. I don't care, I just need my home to fit my needs. So what does that mean? Here we go, bada bing, bada boom. If you're gonna rent a home, what's something that would make you choose it over another one? 67% said if it's new construction. That's a lot. All right. And then why do they choose single-family homes over apartments? Because they want a private yard. They don't want anyone living above, below them. They want it to be pet-friendly, and they want it to have an attached garage. What does that sound like? Home ownership to me, right? But I don't want the mortgage, or I can't afford it, the mortgage. I don't want the down payment, or a lot of people just don't want the maintenance. Please don't make me have the maintenance. And here's a really great example from BB Living. We can talk about the design examples and how you design those homes slightly differently, but that wraps it up for me. Here's your top 8 consumer wants.
Did I tell you you were going to love it, Deanna? Huh? Is that amazing? Fantastic job.